So the goal is to become a full-time artist. So you'd think that being an artist means that you sort of get to sit down, just draw, create pretty pictures all day long. The actual creating of art so far, to me, working as a part-time artist, seems to equate to about, well, less than 50% of the endeavour. The other 50% is trying to actually make money from those pictures, finding a way to monetize the talent. So it used to be fairly, not easy, but it was viable. It was a tough but viable option sort of 20 years ago. As time's gone on, it's just got harder and harder. I think over the last few years, pretty much since the COVID pandemic in 2020, it's all just got a little bit too much. So now I'm trying to branch out. I'm trying to find ways to make more cash, to actually make a living out of the art thing. So I went online. I thought, let's try thinking outside the box, because everyone always says, right, social media, go on social media, go on Instagram. Okay, that stuff's dead. There was even this new one that popped up, Cara. Someone said, oh, you should get on Cara. So I did. I put a dozen images on Cara about that. So every week or every couple of days, I would schedule an image, post it up. And it's like, okay, 10 people liked the image, all of which were other artists. You know, you're not going to make any money from Cara unless you're probably, as always, part of the 1% club where people can actually find you and where you're actually garnering the most attention. 99% of artists on that website, on Cara, are not going to get anywhere if where they want to get is to make a living out of their artwork. It's fine as a community thing if you just want to share art with other artists, in the same way DeviantArt used to be before they completely sold out and went down the AI route. One thing I tried was a website called Art Finder. So the idea with this is basically it's a fine art website, a gallery / retailer who will effectively represent you. You have to give them, as is typical with most offline galleries, 50% of your income from the sale of your artwork, which still is extortionate. But I suppose with artists, it's a supply and demand thing. There's so many people who would love to get these big, influential, high-paying clients that are willing to drop thousands of pounds or dollars or euros or whatever on your artwork. And, well, I'd rather have 50% of, say, £2,000 than 100% of nothing, or maybe I could only sell a bit of artwork for, you know, 20, 50 pounds at my local village hall or something. So I kind of get it. It is what it is. As always, it's the artists, the ones with the either the talent or the ones that are putting the effort, the people at the bottom that kind of get shafted. It's the same with the music industry. It's always been that way and will always be that way. So that's just how it is. We have to accept that. So I put my application through, and in the end, the answer was no. No, we're not really in to represent you. You're not really a good fit for us. And I kind of thought, well, yeah, I mean, look at my artwork. It's not exactly fine art material. It's kind of weird though how, when was it? Probably like 15 years ago, that street art became a thing. Might have been 20 years ago, but the fine art world didn't give a fuck about street art. You know, I remember being back at school when I was like 15, and I used to look through books because you didn't have the internet back then. So you had, if you were lucky, a book with graffiti in it. It was a lot of like New York subways and trains and things like that. People were just spray painted like elaborate tags and typography stuff. I just thought it looked amazing. I liked the colours, I liked the styling, I liked the fact that I guess it was a bit rebellious or whatever. And then you had like Banksy come along and try and be a bit political with it. And then suddenly this kind of street art look, this kind of grimy thing became a thing. The thing became a thing. It's weird because it didn't exist and then it did. And I think within the next 20 years, you are going to get anime, manga, video game related things coming to the fine art space. Unfortunately, it's not going to be done in a way whereby a really good Final Fantasy style JRPG illustration is going to be sold on a giant canvas for millions of pounds. You're going to get someone do what they do at the minute with like the graffiti side of things, where you'll get a popular character, normally like Mickey Mouse or Bart Simpson. You'll graffiti it up a little bit, you know, you'll have them and then you'll have some tags, slogans and paint splats, just some shit put over the top of it, and then you'll sell it. Or it might be, you know, that kind of grimy, it's got like a grimy 80s punk aesthetic mixed with sort of popular culture and stuff. I mean, it's been a thing in art probably since the 60s, this kind of pop art stuff that has a lot of this kitsch pop icons incorporated within the art space, sort of in the fine art world, people love it. More people would probably buy a painting of Mickey Mouse with some splatters on it and some graffiti over the top of it done by a relatively unknown artist, and they'd pay more money for that than they would pay for an original hand-drawn sketch of Mickey Mouse by Walt Disney. Maybe I'm wrong, but it seems to be the way that it is. Anyway, I'm going off on a tangent, which is fine. That's what I do. Okay, I'll just get back to the point where I think that is going to come back with the anime thing. You're going to get someone do a Goku, put some graffiti over the top of it or some splatters, make it look all kind of grungy and put it on a canvas, and people are going to make millions doing that. Maybe I should get in there quick and do it myself. I think that's going to be a thing. Mark my words. It probably exists already. If anyone finds an example, let me know. So, Art Finder. That was no good. No one wants anime character art or anything inspired by cartoons, comics, tattoos and illustration, whatever. I say illustration, but this is another point. Let me go off on another tangent. So another thing I did after Art Finder was try to apply to work or collaborate with some illustration agencies. I don't think I'm a particularly good fit for it, but I did get a message from a talent scout on LinkedIn that said, "Are you interested in becoming part of our agency? We're doing an open call." And I thought, okay, I'll submit my portfolio. So I put a portfolio of 10 images together. It was more on the sort of tattoo side of things. I worked as a part-time tattoo artist for 10 years, and I kind of felt like that would be a better fit than the anime stuff. I might do a second portfolio at some point and send that along and say, here's my sort of manga anime-inspired stuff. What do you think? Would this be a good fit for you as well? So I did that, and I thought, well, while I'm here, I went to a few other illustration agency websites. They had a submission process whereby you fill in a form or send them an email with your portfolio, and then you can be one of the 1,000 potential submissions that are coming into their inbox that month. And maybe if you're one of the lucky ones, you'll get representation whereby they'll forward you work. They'll basically ask if you're interested in a project. If you are, they'll negotiate a rate. You and the agent will go probably 50-50 on whatever the rate is. Again, it's one of these things where if you could deal directly with whoever the client is, like BMW or, I don't know, Jack Daniels or something. I don't know why I thought cars and whiskey, but anyway. But if you do it directly with them, you could get a bigger share of the profits. However, you probably couldn't negotiate a higher rate because who are you? You're just an artist or an illustrator. You're not a sales marketing seller of art, basically. So I've applied for illustration agency work before. Normally, I don't get a reply. So I'll normally, every 5 years, just send out submissions to maybe 10 agencies and say, if you're interested in representing me, here I am. Most of the time, you don't get a reply. And I'm aware of the fact that, yeah, it's not uncommon to get hundreds, if not thousands of potentials wanting to be represented because it's work. But the reason I don't get the work, I think, is because I don't like drawing fat women in a clip art style. Because I don't know what it is, but this very basic one-tone fat woman seems to be really popular at the minute. I'll put some examples up. And it's just a weird phenomena. It's just become a thing. Like if I think of companies like Google, they love a fat woman, on one of their illustrations. I don't really draw fat women. For me, art is about creating a certain aesthetic. And I guess my target audience typically would be teenage boys, young men, girls as well. Like I sell at comic conventions and girls make up like 30% of my sales. So it's not just the boys, but it's vibrant, glossy. It's more, I don't know, modern, related to games and anime, that kind of thing. I'm very much someone who tries to create idealized versions of things. So if it's going to be a male character, he's going to be fit, athletic, super muscly, super confident, super competent. If it's a woman, she's going to be, feminine, sexy, over the top in that direction. There was a bit of a pushback a few years back about doing that, certainly in the game industry, but film industry, all industries, especially in the West. I feel like that's basically the kind of woke aesthetic. But then there was a lot of pushback because people generally, this isn't always true, but generally want the idealized stuff. If I want to look at just an average guy, I can just look in the mirror. If I want to look at an overweight woman, I can just stand out in the street. I want to craft something that's a bit more like, just looks cool. The whole endeavour especially if you're creating like sci-fi or fantasy art. It's not real. The whole point is that it's not real. And I have nothing against anyone creating artwork of, let's just say, like sexy medieval babe characters where they've got like, 5-inch heels and armor that would never actually like protect them in battle. Like, if that's what you want to do it. It's fun. It's not real. No one really cares. No one's actually thinking, actually physics and science doesn't work like that. Look, if you want to live in the real world, don't engage with any sci-fi fantasy stuff, or just stick to those kind of things and just let the other people that just want to go crazy, go crazy. So that's just my take on that. Yeah, I just don't ever feel like I'm a fit for illustration. It's not that I technically couldn't do it. It's that I feel like, and I think I've said this before, that style of illustration that illustration agencies want typically isn't something I find aesthetically pleasing. I would be bored of doing stuff like that. I think it's too obvious, too simple. I don't know, maybe I could get into it. Maybe I could learn to enjoy it. Maybe I probably could. But I didn't get into art to create fat, one-tone clip art style female illustrations. That wasn't the thing. And maybe I'm just stuck in childhood mode. Maybe I should have grown up. Maybe I should be doing adult art. Not adult art, but you know what I mean. I don't know, didn't want to do it, so I didn't. And then lastly, one thing I thought might be a genuine opportunity. Arts Council England were giving away up to £12,000 in grant funding to artists. So the requirements were, you have to be English, you have to be living in England, you have to be an artist, a practicing artist. I think of a certain age, you can't be like a college leaver, a university graduate, that kind of thing. So you have to have like an established kind of portfolio, some kind of like history of doing art and stuff. And you have to, have not asked for funding it before. So it's just for people that are basically at a bit of a crossroads, feel that now is the right time for them to sort of try other things, explore new ideas. It seemed as though you didn't even need to show the fruits of the labour from the grant. Like it wasn't like they're going to give you £12,000, you're going to go away, produce a product, and then you have to prove you've made the thing using the grant money and the product exists and all that kind of thing. Maybe you do, I don't know. But okay, I thought, well, look, I'm ticking all the boxes. I'm in England. I heard about some art grants in America. There was someone I knew. I'll be honest, she was completely incompetent as an artist. She wasn't particularly bright. She was struggling with things in general. She actually went on a course, the same course I went on to, which was basically learning how to sell art online. I'll go into more details with that another time, but she was on the same course. She was like the weak link. We had to stop the course continually to try and explain very basic concepts to her about certainly like computer related things. She didn't really understand. I don't think she even understood where she was sometimes. Everyone had basically read the course material, was trying to implement it, was trying to tweak it, was trying to refine their process. She didn't even understand where the files for the course material were even located on her computer, that kind of thing. Anyway, for some reason, she got a grant. She couldn't paint, she couldn't draw, she didn't understand any artistic principles, but for some reason she got a grant. So I looked into this at the time a few years ago, and I couldn't find anything. I couldn't find anything about people like myself being English born and, living in England. I couldn't find anything to do with grants until recently, where I came across this Arts Council England, which is basically funded by the National Lottery. So every time you buy a lottery ticket, a percentage of that goes into a charity. Part of that charity is the Arts Council. So it's basically promoting art and things that aren't just, sitting in a cubicle, pushing numbers around the screen, I thought art was supposed to sort of provoke ideas and to inspire and to bring aesthetics and beauty into the world. And, there's a load of reasons why you'd create art. I'm just not sure anymore. So anyway, I applied for the grant and I was quite hopeful. I thought, okay, I've got a good chance here. So I spent ages putting together the perfect application and I thought, yeah, this is looking pretty good. Submitted it, waited 3 months, got a response. They said no. They said, no, we're not interested. And I couldn't understand it. I was a bit confused. So I thought, right, okay, you get 2 shots, 2 chances to submit every, I think, 4 or 5 years. So I thought, right, okay, there's one of my shots down. Try one more time. I've got one more time to get this right. So I was looking at other previous applications and there was a few people online that explained that they too went to get some grant funding. They had written a certain proposal. It kind of looked like this. They were sort of giving tips on how other people could do it. I thought, well, great. Okay, I'm going to use your advice. I'm going to take that on board and sort of cultivate, what I would think was the perfect application. I did that, and I thought, okay, there's a lot of money at stake to potentially get granted in order to further my sort of artistic practice, and the idea would have been use the money to basically, if I had the grant money, I wouldn't have to do the part-time to pay the bills stuff. I could just sit tight for sort of 6 months, basically, just 100% concentrate on the art, maybe build a new website, create a new range of products, which I think might be a bit more sort of commercially viable, and see where it goes. Test the market, do some research. I thought this could be my opportunity to do that. So yeah, I crafted a new application. I went through the whole thing with a fine-tooth comb, making sure that it was compelling, that I accounted for every penny that I would need and how every penny would be used, because you can't just say, I want money. You have to say what you're going to do, with the money, and you have to sort of break it down, how much things cost, and how much it's going to come to in total to do what you need to do. I waited. I was hopeful. Last time I thought, well, maybe there's a 50-50 chance I'll get in. This time I thought, no, there must be like a higher percentage chance of me sort of being accepted for this grant. And then 3 months later, they said, no, we're not giving you any money. And I'll be honest, I was disappointed. I was confused. I thought, why? Because I think the idea is you have about 2,500 applicants per round, per time that they ask for these grants. Like I say, you're allowed to do 2 applications within a 4-year period, I think. And out of those 2,500 applications, I think they award around 500. So it's about 20% of applicants will actually get a grant. So, okay, you've got a 1 in 5 chance. If you don't get it, most people didn't get it, don't cry about it. But what was interesting is that they put a spreadsheet out detailing the people that do get the grant money, that are granted, and how much they're given with their grants. And some of them surprised me a little bit. One of them was this guy, I don't even know how he got the money, because it was an Iranian guy wanting to go to Iran to do some kind of art education, and they paid his travel and his tuition for that. And I just thought, okay, the whole thing read like a scam, but I thought, okay, well, he did it. Well, it is what it is. They gave this money, some guy some money to go to another country to fund some art project over there. I don't know, it seemed a bit removed from the whole England and the English Arts Council. And then there was a few others. There was someone who got £12,000 in funding so that they could go on holiday to America, to Nashville, to explore the queer country music scene. There was someone else what were they doing? They were doing, I think, LGBTQI plus portraiture of people within Zimbabwe. What has that got to do with this? Someone else, it was funding for Arab poetry for Arabs with ADHD and something else. And I was just like, basically, the long story short is I realised I wasn't woke enough. And that was why I didn't get the funding, partially. I'm sure there were other people who weren't trying to go down that route who did get funding, but to even lose out to one person for a project where they literally just want a free plane ticket to America for the reason of studying queer country music. I'm just like, okay, the world is trying to teach me something. I put these videos out to explain how I'm on a mission to become a full-time artist. By that, I mean make a living from my art. So as I explained, I'm trying to do things which might benefit me in that regard, but it's not working. The world is telling me you're not, at the moment it seems like art is generally something that logically minded conservative types don't really get. They're all about just sort of basic factual is what it is type things. Art is just namby-pamby frivolous crap that is just there to be a hobby. It's never there to make money from. And so because you have a lot of these, on the Big Five personality scale, you would say high openness types that are a bit more kind of accepting of weird ideas, or just are more open-minded, I guess you could say. They tend to be a bit more like left-leaning and progressive, and therefore the whole art space tends to be of that type. Trouble is, over the last 10 years, there's been a push for the left-leaning progressive political types, which would normally be seen as like extremists, to now be seen as mainstream, and they now are in control of things to do with arts and humanities and that kind of thing. So you don't really get a look in, and I think that's why I've tried certain things. I've mentioned before about Society6 kicking me out of their web platform. They don't give you a chance to say, they don't tell you why you're being kicked out, or give you a chance to adapt to what you're doing or whatever it is. And I'm not really too bothered because, like I said, I hardly made any money from the platform as it was. But, and I'm willing for people to just say, look, you're just not good enough. You are not good enough at your craft. Get lost. If people say that, to some degree, fair enough. When you feel like you're being kicked out for some sort of political reason, or because your style or your motives for doing what you want to do aren't politically motivated, specifically, you're not indoctrinated into sort of like a far left ideology and you want to espouse that through your artistic endeavours. If that's not the case, then sucks to be you at the moment. I mean, typically what happens in history is the pendulum swings. Sometimes you'll get political sides gain dominance and power and influence, and then there's backlash against it, and then the opposite side will sort of reign supreme for a bit. It's always a kind of, nothing's ever stagnant. So maybe if I wait another 10 years, things will be different. But, I'm just getting this constant impression that I'm not being served by the world in some ways. And maybe this is me being a bit of a victim mentality, but I'm just saying what I'm observing. Feel as though the fact that I am white and I'm male and I live in England puts me in what people would consider a privileged position. In some ways that's true, but in some ways, with the current sort of political climate the way it is, it puts me in a very disadvantaged position in specifically what I'm trying to do. I don't want to chalk everything up to like political ideology, because I think that can be a bit of a mistake. I think people can dwell on that whole concept too much, but I don't know. I mean, I don't think I ever mentioned the fact that I tried applying for a job working for a game studio a while back, and they basically said in the application, if you're, a straight white man, you need not apply. We're only looking for women if you were black, or just if the skin colour was of a certain shade. I don't know when you have to get the colour chart out and decide when you finally qualify, but if you're obviously a white Caucasian European of European descent like myself, it wasn't going to work. This stuff didn't happen 15 years ago. This wasn't an issue then. It's only happened in the last 10 years. It's just another little thing that's making the journey harder than it needs to be. And I might be complaining over nothing. Like, at the end of the day, maybe the style of artwork I'm producing isn't fit for the arts, I'm not allowed to be represented within illustration, but I can be represented within the film and game industry. That's kind of where I sit. It kind of is what it is. If you're drawing manga characters, of course, your place is within the animation industry, the comic industry, or the game industry. You don't get to sort of dabble in, fine art or other platforms that aren't for you. It's just weird. I see a certain aesthetic that seems to do well in the art space when you just, using art as a broad term. It's not the aesthetic that I like. It's not the aesthetic that I produce. And I think that makes it quite difficult for me. So there's some things I tried. Some things didn't work. I'll continue to press forward, but I just want to be real, want to be honest, want to update my experience of what I'm actually doing, rather than just say, oh, I'd like to be an artist one day. I'm already a part-time artist. I need to make this a full-time thing. And I've kind of given myself to the end of the year to do that. This is just me documenting the journey, trying things, saying what's worked, what hasn't worked. I'm trying to think outside the box, do other things like that. Sometimes it's not going to work. So I might as well just be honest and say when it hasn't and go from there. So yeah, if you've got any other suggestions, things I might try in order to sort of, I guess, make money from art, then let me know and I'll look into it. Until then, I'll see you next time.